some bench presses.
What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go ahead and do a full field sectioning of this bull ready to pack out. And I'm going to do it a couple different ways just to show you different ways that you can do that. But one of the first things that I do when I'm in this situation is I want a clean area for my meat. I have a very packable tarp that I like to lay out, spread out, whereas as I take cuts of meat off, I'm able to lay that out and let some air get on it. If you have to worry about flies, then they should go right into game bags. When it comes to my backpack, I've got some of the essentials that I need: my bugle tube, hydration, some food, but I also have, game bags. I've got a couple different sets of knives. I actually am going to do a very, very cool full bone-in rack, backstrap rack bone-in. So I actually have a tomahawk here for that. I've got some caping knives, which I'll need to go ahead and pull the cape off the skull. And then I've got several different deboning knives. I like different shapes. This is a shape that I really like for actually caping through. And then when it comes to pulling that meat off the bone, I actually like a more straight edge like this, something to where I can really follow the bones all the way around. So we're going to do this a few different ways, but these are the essentials that you have to have. You have to have a clean working surface. You need to have the ability to keep flies off of your meat if possible. But sometimes just getting it out and letting that cool air cool it down is going to really, really benefit you. So we're going to jump in here and I'm going to talk you through a couple different processes on different quarters. So I think you're going to be excited about this. Now, one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the front quarter. There's a couple different things you can do. This is actually a step that you can do if you want to cool your elk down. If you have to come back for your elk, this is a great way to actually lay it further open to get it cooled down more. Otherwise, in this case, I'm going to remove this front quarter and I'm actually going to leave the hair on, because since we don't have that far of a pack out, I'm actually going to do a good job of keeping the meat cleaner by leaving the hair on. I'm not worried about the weight just because of the pack that we have, and it'll allow me to keep it cleaner. But the thing that I do have to do is you're going to have to remove the hide so that you can lay this open. So what you'll do is you'll start to pull on the hair and you're going to literally cut along the bottom of the hide, and there's a clear separation between the fat and the skin versus the meat. And so as you're pulling, it's going to stretch and you're just going to hit that and pull as you go, and you just continue to work that along. And what'll happen is you'll actually be able to, as you can see here, fully open this entire front shoulder. So I've skinned this down, and once I get skinned down to the point where I feel this shoulder bone, at that point I bring my knife edge down to the actual rib cage and I follow my blade along the rib cage, which you can hear right there, and this entire front scapula is going to fall forward just like this. Now I'm going to show you the few cuts that I'm going to make so that you can actually remove that entire front quarter, and we're going to go ahead and move it over to our clean surface area. Okay, for this quarter, I'm going to leave hair on, like I said. So we've gone ahead and we've taken this all the way back. Now I'm going to lay it back forward, and I'm pretty much going to make a clean cut the entire radius of that front quarter that you can easily see move. So I'm going to cut the hide all the way around that section. Once that hide's cut, I'm then going to lay this open, and I'm going to go ahead and make these last cuts through the inside of this scapula, and this piece is going to literally come right off. And from there I'm going to lay that piece down onto the hair, which will protect it from the ground, and I'm going to go ahead and slide it over to my clean surface area. You can see I'm pulling the hide and cutting straight down so that one, my cut is clean, and 2, I'm not getting hair onto the area. If you have a good sharp knife, you're able to make this cut without having a bunch of hair come off. Following this rib cage, you can see the ribs right here. So I'm following that along, following the scapula, following the ribs. This just disconnects right here. From there, I'm going to go ahead and continue to cut this hide. I've got my entire leg off. You can see it's going to stay very, very clean. I'm going to bring this up, lay it down. You can let it air out, or with this, you can go right into your game bag. If you want to save extra weight, I can show you a little later how to remove that front portion of the leg for extra weight. But this right here is hair on. You can take this in a game bag right to a butcher if you don't know how to debone it, and they'll just continue to remove that skin, and the meat's going to be hair free, debris free, and super, super clean. So for this rear quarter, I'm also going to show you hair on, so that we're consistent with both the front and the back quarters. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and cut this hide on the left side of the tail and kind of run just underneath the skin and up the back just a little piece. I've also made a cut from the front edge of the hip, and if you feel, you can feel where that leg bone and come into the pelvis, and essentially that's going to be the bottom of your back strap. So I've made a cut along the front edge of that hip straight down to the center line. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and make an incision on the left side of this tail and go straight up to the center line here, and that's going to make it much easier for me to now lay this leg open and be able to cut the meat away from that pelvis so that we can easily detach this rear quarter. So now I'm going to use the weight of the leg. I'm going to lay this quarter open, and again, you're going to want to recognize the front hip bone, and you're going to follow that front hip bone, and you're going to pull this leg and follow that hip bone just like I just did. I'm using my knife against the hard surface, and I'm just following as I go, cutting. And the weight of their leg helps you. The weight of this is pushing and separating. So now that I've got down here on this back pelvis, I hit the pelvis, and the pelvis makes a slight angle out towards the leg. Essentially it's a triangle like this. So we hit the pelvis, and I'm following that pelvis down as I'm cutting. And the key is letting the weight of the leg help you. Right here is the ball socket. When you hit that, you just follow that ball socket around. Be a few little tendons there that you'll have to cut, but as you do, and always follow the pelvis. So I'm just keeping the hair, so the hair is down on the ground, which leaves this meat beautifully clean, and I'm able to pull on it. If you need extra leverage for pulling, making an incision right back here, essentially between the leg bone and the Achilles tendon. It's pretty tough skin, but if you make a small incision there, you actually have a place to grab, and you can grab around the Achilles tendon to go ahead and make your pull. So bam, just like this, very, very minimal hair. And I'm gonna just show you this quick. So right there is a full rear quarter of the elk. I'm gonna set it right there, and I can go ahead and put my game bag on that, or if you want, you can actually use this surface to pull some of your cuts off. Another option is to use the same slit, put a piece of paracord through there, and string that leg up in a tree so you can take that hair off right on the tree. Works awesome, and very, very minimal meat left on that bone right now. Okay, so we got both quarters off. Now what I'm going to do is I'll continue to go ahead and remove this skin. You can see here, I pull the skin and just touch that knife along the edge of the skin and the membrane so that I keep this really nice meat and fat on that rib cage. So I'm pulling and following the membrane, and I'm going to do that all the way past the center line of the back, and I'll use this hide as a protection to lay it down on the ground so that we can then remove all of this trim meat off this back portion of the neck, also all of this trim meat and brisket off this side of the cage. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through how to do a full tomahawk steak. All right, so now I'm actually just taking this big neck portion off. Moving this all the way out. One thing that's important is how cool this meat is. From that deep incision underneath, it made all the difference for the preservation of this neck meat. So I'm just following the rib cage as I pull, and this neck meat is coming right out of there really nice, beautifully. Whenever you're doing an animal this big, I can't stress enough the importance of letting gravity help you. You know, holding that meat in a way to where the weight of that meat helps you make these cuts is so helpful. Otherwise, you're just shot by the end of the day. This right here is one of the big pieces of neck flank that we're going to actually braise. It's going to be gorgeous. Going to do 2 of these. Also, I'm going to do this full brisket, which I'm actually going to start right here and remove this brisket off. So Chad Ward is in town right now doing a seminar, and I'll guarantee you he would love to do fresh elk brisket, which we're getting ready to have. And there is an elk brisket. This is gonna be unreal. Just absolutely as good as you can get, fresh off the mountain. A little bit of cleanup. We got an elk brisket. We're gonna have braised neck. Great. Now I'm ready to do the infamous tomahawk steak portion. So what you need to do in order to have tomahawks is essentially you need the ribs on the back straps. So we've removed everything in the front quarters. We've pulled our brisket. We've taken, I like a little bit of meat on the ribs. And really all you have to decide is how long of a handle you want on your tomahawk. What I did was I marked the length of my ribs. I made a score mark with a knife so I could follow it. And I'm actually just hitting these ribs with my tomahawk. And now that you've got that part of the rib cage off, this is the best time to get to my favorite little hidden treasure. And that's what I call the front inners. And on an elk or a moose, so these front inside tenderloins are actually more tender than the inside loins on a deer, and they're about the same size. So you're just gonna follow the inside of the cage and pull as you go, just like this. You can see in there as I'm doing this. And if you want to, you just follow this all the way up. You can either remove both by continuing to follow the opposite side of the spine. Then you'll have a butterflied front inner, which is kind of unique. If you keep following that around like this, you actually have this piece that is so great, and people just leave it, and it goes all the way out like this. So I butterflied it, which is actually two pieces that sit like this. I started on one side, went all the way up and around, but right there is actually two inside front tenderloins butterflied. You can lay them back on top of themselves like this, and you actually have way less waste. It's a very, very great piece of meat for the table. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to lay it on this side of the spine, and I'm going to follow that spine all the way up. Knife on the spine, follow that spine all the way back until you hit the rear pelvis. This is important because what most people do on a back strap is they'll pull this up, and this is a round piece. And most people cut around it to remove that back strap out. You don't want to do that. You need it attached to the ribs. So all you're doing is you're cutting all the way down to the bottom of the vertebrae. And that way, once we cut through that vertebrae from the inside, your back strap is fully attached to the rib cage. So right here at the last rib, I cut all the way to the spine, and I removed what's called that rear tip of the loin tip. Then I cut down, I've made my incision all the way to the bottom base of the vertebrae. Now on the inside I'm holding and pulling, and I'm taking this tomahawk and actually hitting right on the rib joint as I go. And you'll see that this loin is coming off with the bone in. Okay, so I pulled and chopped along the spine as I went, made one full incision down the entire front of where that last rib was, and just like that you have a full elk, bone-in tomahawk. Unreal.